a chilling audio that freezes the blood. In it, you can hear Melissa Palacio begging for her life minutes before she was horrifically dismembered. Her case, which occurred in San Jorge, Zacapa, Guatemala, has once again become the center of attention. After this compromising audio came to light, which could give an unexpected turn to the case. And it is that 5 years after this tragic event, those responsible might not get away with it as they hoped. But who did so much harm to Melissa Palacios and why? Today, I'll tell you about the disappearance. Let's start there. Melissa Alejandra Palacio Chacon was born on November 15, 1999 in San Jorge, Zacapa. Everyone who was lucky enough to know her considered her a responsible, smiling, and humble person, a great daughter, sister, and a dreamy friend. In addition, she was a visionary woman, always looking towards the future, which unfortunately was shattered at a very young age. Thus, for 3 years, Melissa studied auditing at the Eastern University Center in Chiquimula. Then, with care, a lot of dedication and perseverance, she achieved the degree of technical auditor, although her dream was to obtain a bachelor's degree, but someone did not allow it. Everything changed on July 4, 2021. On that day, Melissa left the house she shared with her family. She told her mother, Anabela Chacon, that she was going to attend a birthday lunch of a friend named Cecilia. Her mother said goodbye with a kiss, wishing her to have fun and that they would see each other later. However, the girl never returned. She also never made it to her friend's birthday.
The day she disappeared, Melissa was supposed to attend a lunch with friends and family, but she never arrived.
As the hours passed and the young woman didn't return home, her mother knew something was wrong. She immediately tried to contact her through messages and calls, but she never answered. The calls went straight to voicemail. It was strange that Melissa, who always had her cell phone on, hadn't responded by 5 in the afternoon. Her mother contacted her other daughter, Daniela, in the hope that she knew the whereabouts of her daughter. Daniela, worried, told her she had gotten an audio message from her saying she was headed to the party and that the car she was traveling in with a friend had broken down. Before panicking, Annabella contacted Cecilia, Melissa's friend, hoping inside that it was just a misunderstanding and that her daughter had simply forgotten to charge her phone. But to her dismay, the birthday girl told her that Melissa had never arrived at the party. The mother contacted all of her daughter's friends she knew, including María Fernanda Bonilla, who was concerned about her disappearance, and even offered a helicopter to facilitate the search. But the hours passed, and not all the resources in the world brought Melissa back. Annabella had no idea that evil incarnate in a person was closer than she thought. Melissa's mother, a police officer, quickly activated the alert. Isabel Claudina, that this is the immediate search protocol for missing women in Guatemala. So both the family and the authorities started their search immediately, which would have a tragic outcome. And the next day, a group of firewood collectors came across the lifeless body of Melissa Palacios in a field located in the village of La Palma in Rio Hondo, Zacapa. The young woman had signs of violence, and it was believed that she may have tried to defend herself because in her hands there was a branch and a stone. Her face was disfigured.
And according to what?
Her death by stoning was verified. In addition, the authorities believed that the actual crime scene could have been somewhere else, as they found the victim's hair on the way to the crime scene, suggesting that she might have been dragged there. According to the forensic report, the cause of her death was due to severe blows to the head with stones, and intimate aggression was ruled out. In addition, they discovered that there were marks around her neck, indicating that before being stoned, he or the attackers tried to take her life by suffocation. 2 days later, the family bid farewell and called for justice, following the death of a young woman of only 20 years old who had dreams and illusions ahead of her. And so, while the relatives and friends of the victim were holding the wake for Melissa, they asked the authorities to clarify the crime. The first thing justice did was to investigate the closest people, quickly. The hypothesis that a romantic partner could be the culprit was quickly ruled out. Her relatives denied that Melissa had a partner or any suitor. Another hypothesis that was ruled out was revenge against her mother because Annabella was part of the police force. At first, it was thought of a revenge or a settling of scores, but the mother denied having enemies. That's when Daniela, the young woman's sister, remembered the last audio received by her, the one I mentioned earlier. In it, Melissa told her she was with a friend when the car broke down, providing a new clue. Then the prosecutors accessed the victim's phone and found the last messages she sent before disappearing. Well then, María Fernanda Bonilla Archila, 20 years old, had been the last person to have contact with her since her disappearance. The authorities wanted to investigate further into... The victim's family was consulted about the closeness of her relationship. According to her relatives, Bonilla had been friends with Melissa since childhood and they were former classmates. However, the mother recalled that the relationship had been lost recently due to the woman's concerning possessive behavior. And so, thanks to the reconstruction of her last hours of life, it was known that Melissa left her house and went to meet María Fernanda Bonilla, a moment that was captured by security cameras. In it, you can see how the young woman gets into her friend's car, which supposedly would later have mechanical problems. But in the vehicle, it wasn't just the two of them, there was another person that the family couldn't recognize. In a quick investigation of the public security cameras, the police were able to track the car's route to the area where the body was found. With these images, Bonilla became the main suspect in her murder. Bonilla was not located at her home when the search operation began because apparently she was in flight operations. Indeed, Bonilla Archila was a pilot who, during the estimated time of arrival storm in the country, helped to mobilize humanitarian aid for those affected. Among other things, helicopter rescues, which categorized her as a humanitarian person.
But
it is believed that the suspect had tried to flee the country with her bodyguard. No one knew that beneath that Good Samaritan mask was a despicable being. Additionally, a not less important fact was that her mother had been a candidate for the mayor of a municipality in Zacapa. And a year before the events, the young woman would have been a victim of an armed attack.
Archila and Marroquino Val were arrested by the National Civil Police in Antigua, Guatemala, Zacatepeque.
On August 25, 2021, Guatemalan authorities arrested Bonilla and his bodyguard, José Luis Marroquino Val, 27, in another locality. The charges were deprivation of liberty and subsequent homicide of the young university student.
Using deception, they took Melissa to María Fernanda's residence in San Jorge Municipality, Zacapa. Then they moved to a dirt road where they would have murdered her.
Subsequently, on September 9, 2021, they were accused of femicide, and the Zacapa First Instance Criminal Court gave the authorities 3 months to conclude the investigation. During that time, the accused were held in preventive detention.
Bonilla has assured that he will not accept the charges, although he maintains that his crime was not a murder, but a homicide in a state of violent emotion.
For this charge, Bonilla could face up to 15 years in prison. Behind bars, he calmly stated that everything would be clarified in court, trusting in his innocence. But from that moment on, the case was filled with controversies that to this day seem to have no end.
Just as she publishes things that are not true and tries to give information to society, she should also publish. They haven't won any injunction against me. They haven't won any injunction, gentlemen.
Melissa's relatives reported that Bonilla made a social media broadcast from jail. The video was captured by one of the viewers and it was spread on social media, causing an instant stir and outrage.
How are they going to blame me for something I didn't do?
In that broadcast, the young woman mocked the investigation process and boasted that it was already fixed in her favor.
Just accept it, because there's nothing you can do anymore.
The victim's mother grieved that the accused mocked the situation and her late daughter, who was unable to defend herself. A criminal process began because possessing a cell phone in prison is illegal. The day the video was published, the authorities of the penitentiary system carried out a search in the isolation sector for women of the Preventive Detention Center for Men and Women, Los Yocotes in Zacapa. During this operation, they seized a cell phone that is presumed to have been used by Bonilla in his live broadcast. Such a shameless person, by the way.
They already requested and received a change of judge.
Now that's...
They changed.
Judge.
They didn't commit the crime.
Now I don't know what change will remain.
According to Article 26 of the Mobile Terminal Equipment Law, people deprived of their freedom are prohibited from using cell phones. The penalties can be between 6 and 10 years in prison, but this was not the only controversy surrounding this case. On February 14, 2022, the victim's relatives denounced privileges in jail for the accused. Apparently, she would have had access to a vehicle inside the prison, allegedly from her mother, and she enjoyed benefits like a person in charge of cleaning and cooking.
Yes, they already said that she wanted to buy off the new judge. Do I have that much influence? I don't know. Where do I get so much money to buy this?
In addition, they would have caught Bonilla's relatives entering the court at night and on non-working days. Did the public ministry seek to prosecute Bonilla Aquila for the use of telecommunications equipment in prison? But the accused appeared claiming health problems, and this case never progressed further.
But as a human being, what one needs is to know what the final resolution is. Because right now we are in limbo, right? It's unknown what's going to happen.
The investigation seemed to be at a standstill. The only thing keeping the flame of justice alive were the constant protests of the relatives. But new evidence emerged that would put the suspect in check.
A chat conversation that Fernanda Bonilla had with her bodyguard, Jose Luis Marroquin, on the night of July 3rd, 2021 has been leaked.
A WhatsApp chat between Fernanda Bonilla and Jose Luis Marroquin Ovale, whom she identified as Luis Security, was revealed by the authorities. This would have happened on July 3rd, a day before Melissa's disappearance.
It's a chat that is included in the case file and was presented from the first declaration hearing.
According to the analysis of the conversation, Palacios and Bonilla agreed to meet at noon on the day of the events. Bonilla was also communicating with Luis Marroquin, telling him they would go to San Jorge. Bonilla said in the chat,
"Luis, we're doing something tomorrow, but keeping it secret."
He says they'll go to San Jorge at noon.
This conversation continues and precisely Jose Luis Marroquin responds, "Okay," and with an emoji showing the thumb, implying that he agreed with this action.
Then, Bonilla insults Melissa, which he agrees with, and then tells his accomplice, "I am going to kill her."
I'm gonna kill her, and excuse the expression, but it was just like that. I'm gonna beat her to death.
Faced with this disturbing statement, his bodyguard replied, "Bring her here."
"Here in the..."
"We'll kick her out," to which Bonilla responds,
"She's gonna leave with me alone. We're gonna go."
referring obviously to Melissa, and in another part of the conversation he added the following.
"She's going, but here it's easy to let her go without telling anyone."
And again, we see that Jose Luis Marroquin responds to her again with "okay," and she just puts yes and a lizard emoji.
These messages showed that the murder of Melissa had been planned. However, on December 8, 2021, the justice system unexpectedly changed the crime's classification. At first, Judge Jose Maximino Morales Gonzalez linked Bonilla to the murder, but then it was changed to murder in a state of violent emotion, while Jose Luis Marroquin Ovale was accused of cover-up.
They switched to crimes where there can only be 2 to 8 years of prison.
Homicide is considered one of the most serious crimes within the Guatemalan legal system, and it is the act of causing the death of a person, whether intentionally or not. Therefore, since homicide can occur under various circumstances, it is mainly classified into 4 categories, such as manslaughter, intentional homicide, homicide due to violent emotion, and also murder. But Dada, what exactly is homicide in violent emotion, and how is it defined in the Guatemalan Penal Code? This crime refers to the death of a person caused by another in a state of intense emotion, such as anger, fear, surprise, or passion, which prevents the perpetrator from reflecting on their actions.
Melissa's death has patterns such as treachery, premeditation, cruelty, and brutal perversity. The judge, by changing from murder to homicide committed in a state of violent emotion, exposes that he does not see these aforementioned characteristics. The new crime dictated by the judge implies that whoever committed the crime did so with a severe emotional change.
According to the criminal's defense lawyers, Bonilla attacked Melissa driven by a state of rage that blinded her. This statement contradicted the chats where both defendants talked about taking Melissa's life. However, in this case, it is difficult to determine whether this happened or not. But the worst part is that when the crime was reformed, the screenshots showing the chat were not taken into account. This is because the entire conversation was not there and the context could be lost.
It was not taken into account because at the time, Judge Jose Maximino Morales Gonzalez believed that context was needed to understand what Fernanda and her bodyguard were chatting about.
When arrested, Bonilla handed over her phone, claiming she had nothing to hide. However, this confidence was due to the fact that she deleted everything from her phone and it could not be recovered. But with the judge's approval, there was a forensic extraction to the cell phone and they noticed that the conversations had been deleted and the WhatsApp application had been uninstalled and reinstalled. However, the accused had taken screenshots of the conversations that ended up in a recycling folder. So the incomplete chat was located.
Outside the courthouse, family and friends of the victim placed banners asserting that Palacios was murdered. They disagree with the acceptance of charges in favor of Bonilla.
This change in the cause obviously caused outrage among Melissa's relatives, who commented that the change of heading was just an excuse to reduce the sentence. In front of the courts, their loved ones protested, causing disputes with the police authorities, who violently evicted them. By the way, in front of the courts, their loved ones protested, causing disputes with the police authorities who violently evicted them. And then, to make matters even worse, the intermediate cover hearing was suspended because the judge from Chiquimula was recused. This was due to corruption allegations from the victim's family, who believed that the judge had agreed to this accusation due to the power of the Bonilla family.
I have no interest, neither direct nor indirect in this case. I mean personal interest, because the interest is, as a judge, for the case to progress.
At the end of the hearing, Melissa Palacios' mother took the opportunity to confront the two accused of the young Zacapaneca's crime. However, the young accused did not respond to the accusations while prison system guards had her in custody. Then there was an exchange of words and Melissa's mom ended up telling her,
Are you gonna rot in jail?
But Bonilla responded,
I won't rot, that's not true.
Subsequently, the accused was removed under heavy security.
José Luis Marroquino Valle and María Fernanda Bonilla Archila were transferred out of the Chiquimula court tower after the intermediate hearing was once again suspended.
Melissa's family is tired of the back and forth of justice. As you can already imagine, delays and cancellations of hearings are constant, as if they wanted them to give up and stop fighting.
As a mother, a part of me was killed because for me, life no longer makes sense.
With these heartbreaking words, Mother Melissa swore not to give up and to fight tirelessly until both faced the consequences of their actions. Now, a new hope arises with the possibility that justice will finally side with Melissa, an unexpected turn. She also revealed crucial evidence that could change the course of the case.
Mac, here, pull.
After years of investigation, an audio was found that was recorded minutes before the crime, which was verified as evidence of the case. This new evidence revealed a tense confrontation between the two women minutes before Melissa was killed, and it could be key in the trial against both defendants. In the audio revealed on social media, you can hear Melissa Palacio begging for her life, apparently minutes before she was killed. In the same audio, you can also hear the voice of María Fernanda Bonilla, one of the main suspects in this crime, who intimidatingly demanded Melissa to give her a password, apparently from the victim's cell phone. And after Melissa's pleas, the recording showed strange noises. Then Bonilla seems to speak to a third person, and finally the victim's voice is no longer heard. This discovery adds to the previous evidence, the ones I already told you about, pointing to a premeditated crime. However, the judicial process has been marked by controversies, such as the fact that the charges were modified, or when on March 12, 2025, María Fernanda's family arrived at the court accompanied by armed men, which caused outrage in public opinion. And as on other occasions, Bonilla was transferred under heavy security measures, wearing a bulletproof vest. She has also been seen using flashy accessories, seemingly ignoring the gravity of the situation. A video shows multiple masked, armed individuals in front of the Chiquimula court just before the intermediate stage hearing that was scheduled for that day. The incident escalated when the armed men had a confrontation with agents of the National Civil Police and the Special Police Forces, who intervened to control the situation. Judge Juan Jose Regalado Rivas had to decide whether the accused would face trial or not. However, due to this incident, the hearing was suspended as the judge was verbally recused. On the other hand, María Fernanda Bonilla gave a brief statement to the media where she explained that she was facing justice, with a calm heart, happy and that God has been good to her. Then she stated that she would not accept the charges she is being accused of. And well, in the end, you realize that it's a case that seems to have no near end. It's impossible anyway not to wonder what could have been the reason for taking Melissa's life. Melissa allegedly distanced herself from Bonilla due to his possessive and toxic behavior despite her young age. This theory would have been supported by testimonies from acquaintances who revealed that the pilot was controlling with the young carefree girl. This could have led to a previous conflict which is unknown and to a subsequent planning of the crime, assisted by her trusted man.
I don't know what the fear is that I might be able to gain freedom at some point if they are aware that my crime is not murder.
On social media, netizens began to speculate that Bonilla and Melissa may have been a couple in the past. Apparently, they would have separated and Melissa would have started a new relationship, which led Bonilla to summon her that fateful day to confront her about it. The hypothesis of the case followers would be that in that meeting, a strong argument would have occurred and that Bonilla, blinded by jealousy and her possessive character against Melissa, would have killed her in a fit of violent emotion. However, these are just theories, as the victim's relatives denied any kind of romantic relationship between the two women. According to her acquaintances, Melissa felt nothing romantic for Bonilla, but she insisted on sending her expensive gifts, being rejected time and time again by the young woman who only saw her as a friend. Similarly, whatever the reason, it is disturbing the mocking and arrogant way in which Bonilla presents herself to the media, as if she knew everything is already resolved in her favor, guilty or not. Unfortunately,
ladies and gentlemen, I am facing you, I am facing you, I am facing justice.
the family keeps fighting as the case hasn't received the seriousness it warrants. They are still in the long wait for due process. Melissa Palacios' family only hopes for justice because even though a judge rejected several compelling pieces of evidence, they insist that Melissa Palacios was deliberately killed.
In this court of justice, I resign to Katz's acceptance. With
the change of accusation, Bonilla and his bodyguard could obtain at least two benefits. Get out of prison with a substitute measure, and if it comes to a trial, the sentences would be less than those of murder, probably between 2 to 8 years in jail. Yes.
Just as they are asking for justice, I am also asking for justice.
While the new hearing against Fernanda Bonilla is being rescheduled, the family maintains hope for a favorable turn in the case thanks to the new evidence that could shed light on this crime. And so they only hope that justice will finally stop ignoring the evident evidence against her.
And justice will come sooner or later.
But well, what do you guys really think happened? What do you think could have been the reason to take the life of such a young woman? Will you leave it in the comments? Remember that on this channel they upload, remember that there are 2 channels. Pepe Mystery's main channel uploads videos on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. The secondary channel uploads on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Do you find the secondary channel has many more mysteries?